in what's going to be one of the busier days this week. There's 12 games tonight. There's 12 games on Thursday. There's 2 games on Wednesday. Um, Saturday's only got 9, and then Sunday's got 10. It's a weird schedule, I guess, coming out of the holidays. The first game of the night is going to be Toronto and Tampa. So the Maple Leafs, who've been 4-5-1 over the last 10, are at home against the Lightning, who are 8-2 in their last 10. So for Tampa fans, this is a chance for them to go out on the road and show everybody what they've been doing at home. Vasilevsky's the starter for Tampa. Anderson's likely to be the starter for Toronto. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but I can't see why he won't be the starter. The Leafs are still looking for that mojo they had early in the season. And they've got a team coming in that should definitely challenge them, but Vegas was a challenge as well. It really kind of shows where Toronto is in terms of their positioning within the league. And I know there's a lot of Leafs fans who see them as contenders, which is fine. But, if they lose this one against Tampa after losing that one against Vegas, they're going to have to take a look at things. And it's definitely the blue line. I don't look at 6 goals against by Vegas and say goaltending. I think there's issues on that blue line. Having Zaitsev out hurts, but just overall blue line depth is an issue in Toronto. And Tampa's a team, of course, with that lethal attack. Whether it's Stamkos, whether it's Kucherov, whether it's Johnson, whether it's Braden Point, whether it's Nemesnikov, the list goes on and on. Palat, even Killorn. Killorn scores big goals here and there. Hasn't had a great year yet this year, but he will. It's just a matter of when. So the Toronto Maple Leafs Tampa Lightning game should be fantastic. All right, next on the list. The Boston Bruins are in New York. So I've had this running debate for the last few weeks. The Bruins are 7-1-2 in their last 10. The Islanders are 4-5-1. The Islanders are starting Halak, Boston's starting Rask. Rask has been playing like, Tuukka. He's been playing like the Tuukka Rask that won a Vezina trophy. He's been playing like the Tuukka Rask that when Tim Thomas decided to take a year off, Rask took over and the team didn't skip a beat without Thomas, which surprised some, didn't necessarily surprise me. Halak has not been playing well. The Islanders' defense has not been playing well. And this is a game where, again, if they win at Boston, critics will say, well, they've got a soft schedule. It's another team that's not playing very well that they're playing against. But if they lose, then it'll be an opportunity for people to say they're not really contenders. Good, exciting young core with both teams. And Barzal is in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. McAvoy's in the conversation as well. This should be a fantastic matchup. Can McAvoy shut down Barzal? Can McAvoy get something going against the Islanders? Can Barzal score a couple of goals? He came into the season known for his passing, and now Barzal's kind of started to change the narrative and started scoring goals as well. So that's an element of his game that I didn't really expect. And looking at his goal totals in the WHL last year, I don't think that it projects to high goal scoring totals. I think he had 10 last year in the WHL. 10 or 15 or it wasn't very many considering how many he scored at the NHL level. But he's been a revelation, and it's going to be fun to watch this game. Should be an interesting matchup. Next up for business is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. So the Flyers are 6-3-1 in their last 10. Pittsburgh's 3-7. Jari's playing for Pittsburgh tonight against Elliott. Again, Pittsburgh bottomed out. They went into Detroit and they lost 4-1. They're at bottom. It can't get lower. Meaning if they lose to Philly, Philly is not as telling a loss as Detroit. However, Philly's a bigger rival than Detroit. And there's nothing Claude Giroux would enjoy more than getting in the face of Crosby and pointing out, hey, you guys aren't in the playoffs either. And Flyers fans are relentless with Crosby as well. This could be a very spirited affair. We've seen Crosby getting increasingly frustrated over the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 games. I've seen his frustration level go higher and higher. I would expect the Flyers to really push him even further. The thing is, Crosby has that Iginla effect. Jerome Iginla, he'd be floating around in the game and just leave him. Don't get him fired up. Don't hit him. Don't get him all fired up, because if he gets fired up, he's going to score points and goals, and you're probably going to lose. Crosby has that too. Now, unlike Iginla, Crosby doesn't become invisible at points, and Iginla did. But, and I'm not saying that to say anything bad about Iginla. I'm just saying he's not on the Crosby level. I don't think I'm telling tales there. I think that's just reality. This is a big game for Pittsburgh, and potentially a big game for Philly. There's nothing Philly would love more than to stick the Penguins in the basement in their division, to pass them and continue with the momentum they've had over the last month, and to watch Pittsburgh circling the drain. Now, if Jari has a fantastic performance and they win this game, does Jari then get the next one? That's the question. And that's where it's going to start to get tricky here. Jari's numbers are better than Murray's. At some point, he's going to start stealing starts. I've seen it happen to starters with much longer reputations than Matt Murray has. All right, next up, the Nashville Predators and Vegas. Vegas is 9-0-1 in its last 10. Nashville's 5-3-2. Vegas is finally starting to get the respect around the NHL because their schedules got tougher in terms of who they're playing, and they're still winning every game. They are still playing fantastic hockey. Fleury's the likely starter. Rene's the likely starter for Nashville. And this is a game that I would expect Vegas to win, because I expect Vegas to win every game now. It has become the biggest story in terms of any team's record that I've seen in my lifetime. And I say that knowing that during my lifetime, the Montreal Canadiens had their season of 8 losses, and that would be bigger, and maybe Washington's 8-win season might have been bigger. However, that was well before I was able to watch hockey. That was when I was still a toddler. This is the biggest story. And Nashville is coming in, and the pressure's all on Nashville. Vegas is number one, and they're playing fantastic hockey. And people have brought up their goal differential. Okay, their goal differential hasn't been as great as Tampa's, but how many of those games were started by fourth-string goalies and third-string goalies? Their record with Fleury or Subban is insane, and their goal differential is very good with those two in net. So to look for reasons to criticize Vegas, I get it. I was there a couple weeks ago, but really, honestly, Vegas is playing the best hockey in the league right now. And Nashville could find that out the hard way tonight. Or Nashville could come out and win this one. Nashville's probably the one team in the West I look at and say, yeah, they could probably beat Vegas right now. In Vegas. Vegas at home, I think it's some ridiculous record like 16-2-1, which is just crazy. And the fact that, and I've said this before, their road record is starting to get better. Yeah, it's all Vegas this year. Really is. All right, next up, the Washington Capitals. They're in Carolina. 6-2-2 record for Washington over their last 10. 7-3-0 record for the Carolina Hurricanes over their last 10. I'm very impressed with both teams over the last 5 weeks, I'd say. Carolina's finally getting the results, and Ward's in net again tonight. Darling's riding the pine, and Holtby is likely to be the starter for the Capitals. Goaltending controversy, you might qualify it as a goaltending controversy in Carolina. I just find it funny that in a few locations we've had goalies brought in to replace starters. The starters are made backups. Those backups are now starters again. Proving once again that goaltending is the most difficult position to play in hockey, because if you have a bad night, you don't get to play the next night. If you have a bad night as a defenseman or a forward, you get demoted to the next line. You don't necessarily get benched right off the bat. Goalie, you're benched. And Ward has played very well. This should be a fun game. I would not be surprised to see Carolina win again and continue to put the pressure on teams above them and start climbing into an actual playoff position and looking up above that. And for Washington, they've simply been one of the best teams in the NHL over the last month and a half, about 2 months. There isn't much to pick apart with their game right now, and some of the depth guys that at the start of the year I was asking questions about have come through and played really well for them. And to me, the story with the Capitals as well, and part of the reason for this resurgence, is the development of Tom Wilson. And I don't think enough can be said about the fact that this year, finally, Wilson has been given an offensive role. He's taken advantage of it, and he's been playing very well. And I hope that's the story of his career going forward, because he's not just a fighter. He's not just a borderline dirty player. He can actually play hockey. He has a decent shot. He's good with the puck, and I'm glad Washington's giving him a chance to show it. So big game for them, big game for the Hurricanes, and now we're in January. So this is, I guess, officially the dog days is right after the holidays. December, January is usually when you're looking at teams who are either not as motivated or teams are just really tired because the grind really starts to get to them. Next up, San Jose and Montreal. The San Jose Sharks in Montreal. San Jose's 6-2-2 over their last 10. Montreal's 3-6-1. Montreal had all of this energy and enthusiasm, and now it's all gone again. All of the talk is about Max Pacioretty, and I intend to do a video about Max Pacioretty and the rumors that are going around, and the reality of trying to trade him versus what they want, and just how where I think things stand right now. Just personally, how it looks to me. San Jose comes in with Dell. Price is likely to be the starter for Montreal. In terms of for San Jose, Dell starting in net is not a downgrade off of Jones. Dell is putting up excellent numbers. There's no goaltending controversy there because Jones is also putting up excellent numbers for the most part. So we'll see how this game goes tonight, but I'm not looking for a Montreal win because Montreal's goal scoring has dried up and San Jose doesn't allow very many goals. Now that I've said that, it's probably going to be like 6-4, one or the other. It's usually what happens. I say, well, this game won't have any goals, and then there you go. I did look up goal scoring in the NHL today. Goals are at an average of 5.9 per game right now. So they were above 6. They've dropped below 6. They have been coming down. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't just seeing things, that it was actually starting to drop. It's not going to get down to where it was, for the last few seasons. It's going to stay higher than that, but your opportunities to score are dwindling as the season goes along, which I think has been the case really since the 80s. I mean, in the 80s, you just score goals the whole game, but it started to come down. Let's say early 90s, teams started playing better with the lead. You started bringing in assistant coaches, and then later on video coaches, goaltending coaches. So many coaches is a big part of the reason why goal scoring is at a premium now. All right, next up, we have the New Jersey Devils and the St. Louis Blues. Carter Hutton starting for the Blues. Schneider's likely to be the starter for Jersey. St. Louis has become a story. So Jaden Schwartz is out, and it has affected them. I saw something about Bouwmeester being activated off the IR. I don't know if that helps them or not, but because I've depending on which Blues fan you ask, either Bouwmeester's a good, decent top 4, or they want to get rid of him. Jersey comes in, and Jersey started to look mildly, I want to say vulnerable. And St. Louis, with their 3-7-0 record, they won their last game, and they've been playing better lately. The results don't necessarily show it, but they've been playing better lately, and the results are due to turn. I would not be surprised to see St. Louis win this one. Jersey's been very good this year, but I do think St. Louis is due for this win tonight, and Hutton's numbers have been insane. Hutton has been playing very, very well all season. And I don't expect that to stop tonight against Jersey, although Jersey's speed and youth could give St. Louis trouble. Absolutely could give St. Louis trouble. Next up is a game that I don't think we would have expected this. So you've got Reimer is the likely starter, Dubnik's the likely starter. Florida's 6-3-1 in their last 10, and Minnesota's 5-5. But Minnesota's started playing better, and Florida's been really good lately. This should be a very competitive game. And while Minnesota's going to be the favorite, Florida comes in with a nice long winning streak. And I'll go ahead and say if you're going to take an upset of the night, take that one. Florida has a lot of good young weapons, and it's been a matter of making sure that everybody's on the same page. And I think that as long as their depth holds up, Florida absolutely gets back in the picture because their division is kind of horrible outside of the top three. And if one of those top three falters, that's where Florida comes in and grabs a playoff spot. Florida was in the playoffs 2 years ago. The roster they have right now is not really vastly different than the one that won the division 2 years ago. It is highly unlikely they'll make the playoffs, but they do have the pieces to get there. It's just, it's a work in progress. It's definitely been apparent too that Jared McCann is much better in Florida than he was in Vancouver, and that the year in the American Hockey League has helped him. I don't know that McCann ever reaches the offensive potential he was expected to when he was in Vancouver, but McCann is a very solid depth guy for Florida, and he just looks more confident with the puck than he did in Vancouver his rookie year. And this is kind of why I was upset when the Canucks traded him when they did. We'll see if he keeps it up. Again, the points and the goals haven't been there as was expected, but he's been playing very well, and there's no taking that away from him. And every piece in Florida is playing a part in this. All of their defensemen and James Reimer has been fantastic. Again, not to take away from Minnesota, who's got Dubnyk back, and they're relatively healthy, and Zach Parise comes back tonight for Minnesota as well. We don't know what that'll do to Minnesota's lineup, if that's going to make them better, if that's going to drag them down. You don't know, because you don't know what kind of shape Parise's in, and what him being inserted into the lineup could do to other players, and what it could do to line chemistry in general. That'll be an interesting one. Next up, the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets are in Dallas. Bobrovsky's the likely starter for Columbus, and Bishop's the starter for Dallas. Dallas is 6-2-2 in their last 10. Columbus is 3-5-2, and Columbus is just in free fall. When you consider where they were a couple months ago, I had them in the elite, and everybody saw them as one of the elite teams, and now it's really fallen apart. And I don't know how much further this goes before you have a conversation about where the problem is. Is it something in the locker room that can be fixed by moves by Kekalainen? Or is it going to be a coaching move, which is the easy one? It's the coward's way out, but it's the one that GMs often take. And Columbus is in an awkward position. Carolina's getting better. The Islanders have been slumping, but even so, in their last 10, they've got a better record than Columbus does. Pittsburgh, we don't know if they're going to break out, but Philly has been playing much better for the last month. So Columbus needs to win tonight. They need to win games on this road trip. They need to win and maintain their position ahead, because everybody behind them is catching up. And that's just something that, if you're a Columbus fan, has to be kind of unnerving, because Columbus has never been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. In their 18 years in the NHL, they have never reached the playoffs twice in a row. This was supposed to be the year, and I don't think any of us would have expected them to be close to missing the playoffs, and yet it is a conversation that we're having. And for Dallas is having a pretty decent run, and Dallas is really good at home. Dallas has been kind of fantastic at home. I'd be very surprised if Columbus won this tonight, but Dallas has been lacking in consistency, though, as I said, at home they've been very, very good. So hopefully that continues for them tonight. Yes, I said hopefully. And hopefully Winnipeg and Colorado both have a fantastic game tonight, and it goes to overtime. I don't want to see either of these teams lose in regulation. They're both 6-3-1 in their last 10. Winnipeg's got Hellebuck starting. Varlamov's likely to be the starter for Carolina. And when you look at these teams right now, Winnipeg has started playing well on the road, which was the key, because they were playing very well at home. Colorado's already very good at home. Their road record kind of sucks. So the key really is that Winnipeg has to maintain that road record. And for Colorado, well, I don't know. I can't. Well, anyways, this is one of those games for Colorado. If they really want to get into the conversation in the Central, like Carolina has, they have to beat the teams ahead of them. Colorado fans don't want this to be a win in overtime. They want this to be a win in regulation and make up 2 points on the Jets that are ahead of them by a long shot. But it's been a good run for Colorado. Nathan MacKinnon is playing some of the best hockey of anybody in the NHL right now, and is definitely playing the best hockey of his career at this point. And in Winnipeg, they've actually put together a pretty decent record without Scheifele so far. I think they're only 2 or 3 games into time without Scheifele. I don't worry about it. Like when I see Brian Little putting up goals and points, it's like, yep, Brian Little can do that for stretches. He can be a key guy at points. He was before the rise of Scheifele, so there's no reason he can't do it again. So that'll be a key game in the Central. There's a lot of divisional matchups tonight too. All right, next up, the LA Kings, who are 5-3-2 in their last 10, are in Edmonton against the 5-4-1 Jekyll and Hyde Edmonton Oilers, who are coming off of a humiliating defeat at the hands of the Winnipeg Jets at home. I was honestly kind of surprised the jersey didn't end up on the ice in that one, but we're not at that point yet. And everybody made a big deal about that in Ottawa. That is nothing new in hockey, to see a jersey on the ice after a frustrating loss at home. And it's something that has happened across the league. It's just different now that we have social media, which we didn't 20, 30 years ago when this would happen. So everybody finds out about it rather than it just being a blurb on a sports reel at 11:30 at night that nobody sees. The Oilers are not at that level, but boy, it's got to be getting frustrating in Edmonton. They have to win in regulation against the Kings. They have to make this a statement game. The Kings, on the other hand, can come in and really frustrate the Oilers. What they have to watch for is, and I started seeing this against Winnipeg, Zach Kassian, and I've had this discussion with people before. When Zach Kassian gets frustrated, he is dangerous on the ice. He's very likely to commit cross checks and slashes and things of this nature. And if the Kings get up early and if it's an ugly lopsided score, I'd be nervous about Kassian and Lucic. And I say that as a guy who watched Lucic in Boston and watched Kassian in Vancouver. Both of them tend to have kind of short tempers, and they don't take losing well. That's something that you want. And I mean, you want that competitive spirit, but you want it to be channeled correctly. And in both cases, there have been times where they channel it incorrectly, whether it's Lucic threatening guys in the handshake line against Montreal, or Kassian and what he did against Edmonton in a preseason game years back. There's just, when you play on the edge like that and you're the big physical player, that's part of the game. And I'm hoping we don't see that if this Oilers slide continues, and we could. So that should be a very interesting game, and I intend to watch that one. The reason I'm going to be watching that one, rather than watching what I could be watching, is because the Anaheim Ducks are in Vancouver tonight. Anaheim's 6-3-1 in their last 10. Vancouver's 2-7-1 in their last 10. Gibson's likely the starter for Anaheim, and it looks like Markstrom will be the starter again for Vancouver. Anaheim wins. That's just the way it works. I understand and feel the pain of Flames fans against the Ducks because I'm right there with them. I know the Canucks don't have this really long losing streak against Anaheim, but it's ugly. And it's been ugly for a long time. It's been ugly going back for, I would say, at least a decade of the Ducks just beat the Canucks. And again, the Canucks are getting into a position already where they're going to have to decide who they're selling off, what they want back, for like a Thomas Vanek, for instance. And people mention Gagner, but Gagner's got a 3-year contract. I don't think Gagner is going anywhere. Gagner's been playing really well lately, too. But Vanek, even though he's been playing well, he is on a 1-year contract, and he does scream deadline rental. The deadline this year is February 27th. So between now and February 27th, this is going to kind of sort itself out. And for Vancouver, I do expect them to be sellers on that day. The Ducks, on the other hand, I expect to be buyers. I expect them to keep moving up. And I think this could be lopsided in favor of the Anaheim Ducks. But you guys can let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. which teams you're taking tonight, for instance. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And this is one of those videos where I kind of wish I still drank pop for my videos, but I don't anymore. So we have what we have, and I'm gonna deal with that after the video. Anyways, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll make sure I throw timestamps on this while it's uploading, and I throw the word first on there as well, because I can, because I'm uploading it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.